Hello, welcome everyone to this episode of the Electric B2B Show. And I am pretty excited about our topic today because it's about how to get rid of us as an agency. Okay, more specifically, how to build a marketing department. Because if you are an IT or a tech or a SaaS company, and you're just starting out with marketing. You might already have an established base. You might be doing a couple of $1 million per year in revenue, and you might have gotten this far without having an actual marketing department and just having a freelancer or a full-time employee, like one or two of them, but without an actual marketing department. And what we want to talk about today is how to get to the next level by building a marketing department and having some actual marketing operations, okay? And as you're going to find out in this episode, it's a lot less about marketing, but more about a different mindset, which is the growth and revenue mindset, okay? And we're going to get into this, but it's important that you don't get over obsessed about this idea of marketing as something on its own, sitting in there, out there, somewhere in the organization as a separate department, because it's important that you view like the entire sales, marketing, and customer success systems as a cycle, as a perpetual cycle that will recycle clients and get new clients and just perpetuate this great cycle of customer satisfaction, of their great experience and the revenue. Okay, and a huge part of that is the people who are doing marketing. Okay, so in that case, marketing as a department does have its legitimacy. Okay, this episode is going to be useful for you if you lead a company or if you are a leader in sales or revenue or marketing and you're looking to really scale like the marketing aspect of what you're doing as an organization, okay? So there are a couple benefits, by the way, to getting marketing right, because even though you might have gotten so far without a lot of marketing, there's some pretty nice benefits. One of them being that even if you think you have enough clients, or if you actually have enough clients and enough revenue, and you might say, hey, like growth is not our primary objective, which is cool. Like we got a couple of clients where growth is not the primary objective of marketing, okay? But if it's not growth, what they want to do is get the best projects. So they want to have enough or more than enough of the best projects and the greatest clients, okay? Because when you really get to choose what clients and what projects you want to work on, that really raises the morale in the company, and things are just more fun when you get to do stuff that is exciting with people who are great to work with, okay? So like that's one benefit of marketing, that you really get to be like picky and choosy about what sort of work you want to take on. Okay, the other is more efficient sales. So if you get good marketing, then sales is going to be easier, and sales are going to need a lot less resources. They're going to be happier, and they're just going to have a better time. They're going to be more productive. They're going to make more money, higher commissions, and it's going to show on the bottom line, okay? The other thing, which is a huge topic right now for all tech companies in the world, is attracting talent, because talent and people, your employees, your future employees, and your current employees for that matter, are a lot more attracted to brands and companies which actually have a story and with whose story they can identify with. And when you're doing marketing, even when it's not like employer branding specifically, but you're just doing marketing the right way in general, your employees and your prospective employees are going to notice, and it's just going to give them a better experience, and it's just going to help them bond better with your company. Not to mention when you get into branding, employer branding, because that stuff is specifically targeted at people wanting to work with you, like employees wanting to work with you. But general marketing, when you're doing it right, it really goes through and really like lets itself be seen and heard for your employees as well, okay? And also, when messaging is in place, when strategy in place, when marketing is in place, in general, there's a whole lot less confusion and more consistency, and that always helps, okay? So you've got all these benefits besides like the big bonus of actually growing revenue, of doing marketing right. Okay, now how do you create a revenue generating engine? Okay, there are three big areas which you need to consider in marketing, okay? Because right now you might be sitting there and you might have like some vague idea of what a marketing department is supposed to do, And if you're thinking, you'll probably got like social media somewhere in there, content production somewhere in there, some kind of website thing, traffic thing. And chances are that all of these are, maybe they're not a mess in your mind, but they're, the puzzle, the pieces of the puzzle don't fit together. Okay, so why don't we straighten things out and simplify them to the greatest amount that it's supposed to be simplified. Okay, 3 big blocks to B2B marketing. Okay, the first block is demand generation. Now, demand generation is all about getting the market and your prospects to want your services. Now, in order to want your services, first of all, they have to understand your industry and your solution and what you do for them on a general level. Okay, so a lot of this is about educating the market. Okay, so that's demand generation at the top of the funnel level, um, where you're targeting like the largest segment of the market. In the middle of the funnel, where you have prospects who are perhaps already engaging with you on a deeper level, they've watched your materials, watched your videos, taken part in webinars, talked to salespeople, talked to SDRs. We call that the middle of the funnel. And on that level, demand generation is about making people solution aware, making them or framing their thinking in a way that leads them to your solution as the ultimate solution or the ultimate service with which they can achieve their goals. Okay, and at the very bottom of the funnel, when you are basically trying to tip them over from being a prospect to an actual client, demand generation is about helping them make the right decision and supporting them with materials such as case studies or pricing guides or whatnot, which they can use to make the right decision. Okay, so demand generation basically happens on 3 levels: the top of the funnel, the middle of the funnel, and the bottom of the funnel. And this simple framework is helpful in figuring out what sort of content and what types of content you're going to be needing to produce. Okay, now the second big chunk in the marketing puzzle is branding. Okay, and you might have an idea about what branding is in the B2C world, but branding in the B2B world is kind of similar. It's about creating experiences and interactions and sentiments and feelings in the target market that will make them bond with you. Okay, so on the one hand, you have demand generation, where you're raising awareness and educating the market, and that in itself is a type of branding, because that is already an experience. So when you're communicating to the market, that's an experience. But branding, when you take that a step further and you are intentionally creating content and experiences and interactions with the market, with prospects, that will help them understand your culture and what you're about and the general awesomeness of your brand. Okay, so that's the second chunk. And you don't have to be thinking about, movies and videos and I don't know, like some fashion shows or whatever you see in the B2C world that you might think of when you hear the word branding. Just think of content, like really good content that is specifically engineered to build that bond with your prospects while providing value. Okay, so that's the second big piece of the marketing puzzle. And the third pillar is what we could call account-based marketing, which is the whole process of building a target list of dream accounts and then figuring out a way to select the ones which you want to target and targeting them and going to market and nurturing them and converting them into clients. Okay, so account-based marketing is all the stuff that comes after you have created the substantial amount of content and the goodwill and the brand with which you can actually go to market. Okay, now these 3 pillars, they're all important. There is some debate on whether you can prioritize one over the other. The general rule is that you can't. So they're like pillars, and if you take 1 or 2 pillars out of the 3, you're going to have a very fragile building. Okay, so these all need to be weighed in sort of equally. Now, that's not to say that they all take the same amount of effort, because creating content is something huge. So demand generation in terms of manpower and work hours, it's going to take a lot more than branding, for example, because branding is more about strategy and planning. Okay, all right, now To build a marketing department and a growth and revenue department the right way, I want to highlight like key things that you need to have right in terms of mindset, okay? The way to think about marketing and growth in a technology environment. Okay, number one, don't think of marketing as some silo in the organization. Think of it as part of a larger revenue play, okay? And the second thing connecting to this is that marketing and sales should be really, really tightly aligned, which doesn't only mean getting together regularly to discuss, who's doing what and to be aligned in general on where things are, but also on measuring revenue, measuring sales and marketing on very similar indicators, which means revenue indicators, which means that you can actually hold marketing accountable for their contribution to revenue. Not after 2 months, not after like 3 months, but after 8 to 10 months of sustained marketing activity, it is reasonable to expect marketing contribution to show up on the bottom line, on the revenue level, okay? And we're going to talk about this in a later post where we talk about the specific indicators and KPIs that you need to be looking at when you're setting up marketing operations, okay? It's a topic in its own. Okay, the third important piece of your mindset should be that you just forget about the obsession with lead quantities, okay? What you want to focus on is lead quality, because a lot of times it's sort of it feels like a safety net for marketers to generate a lot of leads, and that's something that they can just tick off on their list and hand them over to sales. And then of course sales is super frustrated because the lead quality is crap, which costs the organization a lot of money because the leads have to be qualified and nurtured, and then when it turns out that the conversion rate of these whole bunch of leads is very low, then everybody's scratching their heads, and it's not good news because the organization is burning money. What you should be focused on and obsessed about is lead quality, and the quantity doesn't really matter, because chances are if you are selling products with an ACV of over $5,000 but more $10,000 to $50,000, you don't need a whole lot of clients, which means you don't need that many leads. They just need to be super relevant and very qualified and just at the right stage, okay? So you got to focus on quality and not lead quantity. What skills should you be recruiting when you're building a marketing department? In order to answer this question, I've jumped over to the computer so that I can share my screen with you. Now, obviously, if you're just listening to this episode, then you're not going to see what I'm showing you, but I hope you can still make out what I'm talking about. So, to answer the question, what is the minimum viable marketing department for B2B technology companies? I posted this interesting little thing on LinkedIn, and here was my opinion that these are all basically the functions, the groups of skills that you need for a minimum viable growth team or revenue team in technology. And I asked the audience for some feedback and ideas, and I did get some pretty good ideas from very reputable people. And a lot of it just went into the separate skills that you needed. But I thought that for the sake of helping you determine what people you need to be hiring initially for marketing, I would group these under main competences, so to say. Okay, so here's a little mind map that shows you the minimum viable revenue team for high average customer value technology products and service companies, okay? So the big groups of competences or people that you need for your growth team initially are strategy, research and data, content creation, promotion and distribution, and sales development, and obviously sales, okay? Now, there is some overlap in these, but these are the separate groups because it's very rare that you're going to find one individual who is good or adequate in more than one of these areas, okay? So these are basically the major areas of B2B marketing. Now, there is a lot of specialization within these groups as well, but still these are the major areas. So it's going to be hard to find somebody who is a good researcher and good at promotion at the same time, or a good researcher and great at writing content and case studies, okay? So these are the separate areas. Now let's go into them. For strategy, We've got copywriting, which in my opinion is a strategic affair. We've also got product marketing, which is a lot more applicable to product-based businesses, obviously, and not so much for service-based businesses. And we've got branding and also customer experience. These two things which should be handled and viewed on the strategic level. Okay. Then you've got research and data, and for that, because your marketing and your outreach is going to be account-based, you want some account-based research, which gets complemented by intent data capturing and then knowing what to do with that intent data. So the research and data person has to be good at both account research, and what I actually didn't write here is buyer persona research, which is another area which impacts strategy greatly. See? It's not like I'm making things up as I go along. I don't want you to get that impression, but it's true to some degree, okay? So account research at the buyer persona level, which is customer interviews, and knowing what to do with intent data and how to capture intent data. Now, content creation is obviously a huge, huge thing, and I didn't break it down into detail to, put the podcasts and videos and written content and whatnot. We just have, on a general level, tofu, mofu, and bofu content, which means content throughout the funnel, from the top through the middle to the bottom. And we've got the way of, this almost goes into distribution, but it's basically setting up content hubs for your accounts, okay? We're probably going to talk more about content hubs in the coming weeks and months and years, because it's an exciting topic, definitely, and we're doing some nice experiments in that area. Okay, and then we've got another big bunch, which is getting the content and getting the word out there, which is promotion and distribution, and everything from SEO to media buying and PPC through automation and nurturing to demand generation and social media go and fall in this category. You could argue that nurturing is sort of a sales development thing, and it does overlap with some other areas as well. Please don't stone me on these things. I just want to get the general gist of it. So the idea is that if you want one person only initially to do all your content distribution and promotion, they have to be adequate in these areas, okay? And then you've got sales development, and of course that goes into a lot of directions. And the other thing which we are not going into detail about is the customer success stage, all right? So in Clear's humble opinion, this is the minimum viable revenue team for technology companies if you are selling high-end products and services. Okay, now back to the episode. Now, a lot of times companies are better off hiring agencies first, okay? Because what an agency can do is deliver all this talent to you on an as-needed basis, okay? So you don't necessarily have to have a marketing automation expert on board in your company, okay? That's something that you can do on a project-by-project basis. Then, you might be able to hire this talent. It depends on your budget and your experience. But what ends up happening a lot of times is that when you hire an agency, you want them to create like full funnel growth experiments, like avenues of revenue, basically. They need to be experimenting and figuring out what it is that works for your company in terms of getting demand and turning them into prospects and the prospects into buyers, okay? Because there are a lot of possibilities. There are a lot of tools in the toolbox, but it really depends on your market and your organizational competence, like where you're good at, where you're not so good. If you have a strong team of SDRs and a strong sales team, then that's going to require a different marketing strategy than if you don't. If you are really good at content creation but lack a strong sales team, then again, that's another strategy that you need to have in place. And a good agency will figure out these avenues and find out what works for you and create a sustainable system where you're not dependent on just one channel or one avenue, because that's always risky. But you start with where you are the strongest, and then you build up one or two or three other legs to it, okay? And then once they have that, you can start insourcing these activities. And once they've set up the system, you can hire people who will just, keep it working for you.